The Navy SEAL didn't expect his mission to begin like this. Thor screaming beneath the coils of a giant python as the forest roared around them. With one desperate strike of his blade, he drove into the chaos, not knowing the python was only the first warning of something far more terrifying. Because deep in Deepwoods, a traitor trained like a ghost waits for him, the same man who once killed his father, and the battle that begins with a serpent will end with a truth that can burn the world. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories of faith, courage, and the miracles God hides in the darkest places. A thick morning fog clung to the Appalachian Deepwoods, the kind of cold, heavy mist that swallowed every sound and turned the forest into a place where even trained instinct hesitated. Logan Hayes moved through the undergrowth with steady steps, each footfall deliberate, controlled, shaped by years of conditioning inside the unforgiving world of Navy SEAL operations. Though the forest felt vast and watchful, Logan kept his breath slow and his senses open, letting the rhythm of old missions guide him. He reminded himself that this wasn't a battlefield overseas, this was home soil, but the unease building in him felt no different from the nights he'd walked into unknown enemy ground with only thin moonlight as company. Thor padded at his side, occasionally drifting ahead, nose lowered in practiced arcs, breathing in the world through layers of damp earth and rotting leaves. The German shepherd carried a presence that made Logan's chest tighten with an old, familiar blend of gratitude and guilt. Thor had survived things he shouldn't have, just like Logan, and they both carried the ghosts of those close calls in the silent way they scanned their surroundings, always expecting something to move in the shadows. Logan's orders had been simple on paper: find Thuyen Truong David Cross, missing now for 5 days. But the deeper he walked into Deepwoods, the more he felt that the forest itself didn't want Cross to be found. The canopy above was so dense it smothered the sky, and the air tasted faintly metallic, as if something had bled into the soil long before he arrived. Thor stopped suddenly, not a pause, an instinctive lock. His ears twitched forward. Logan felt the shift immediately, a silent signal that reached him through muscle memory more than thought. "What is it, buddy?" he whispered, though he already knew Thor wouldn't break focus. Something had caught his attention. Something wrong. Thor edged forward, following a scent line invisible to Logan. Normally, Logan would call him back, keep him close, but Thor was trained to recognize odors tied to danger, fear, or blood. This wasn't curiosity. It was alarm. Logan followed, lowering his posture as the forest thickened around them. Thor disappeared behind a fallen log, and Logan heard a sound, just one, the deep, heavy drag of something massive shifting across stone. His stomach tightened. Before he could call out, Thor let out a short, sharp bark, the third tone in his training sequence, a distress signal. Logan sprinted. Underbrush whipped at his legs. Branches clawed his arms, but he barely noticed. His world narrowed to that bark. Thor was somewhere ahead, struggling, trapped, maybe worse. Logan vaulted over the fallen log and skidded down a slanted patch of dirt. The moment his boots hit the ground, the scene snapped into focus. Thor was half buried in a shallow rock crevice, his body pinned by coils thick as tree roots. A massive python, an invasive giant that shouldn't even exist in these mountains, was wrapped around him, tightening, dragging the dog deeper into the pit. Thor's paws scraped helplessly against stone as his ribs compressed under the serpent's crushing strength. For a split second, everything inside Logan froze. Fear wasn't something he let in often, but seeing Thor like that cracked something. Thor wasn't just a partner. He was the last piece of survivor's guilt Logan had managed to carry without breaking. Losing Thor here, like this, to a creature that shouldn't even be alive in Deepwoods? No. Logan refused that reality. He lunged forward, drawing the sealed combat knife strapped to his thigh. The python snapped its head around, eyes black as tar pits, tongue flicking in silent aggression. Logan didn't look away. His mind raced through every close-quarters scenario he'd survived. Hit the vulnerable point behind the jaw, avoid the fangs, keep your center of gravity low, don't let the coils reach your torso. He hit the ground hard, sliding into the narrow pit, one hand grabbing the snake's slick scales, the other driving the blade toward the soft spot under the jaw hinge. The python convulsed, muscles rippling like thick cables, nearly knocking the knife from his hand. Thor's breathing hitched, strained, too thin. Logan grit his teeth and pushed harder, twisting the blade, using leverage rather than brute force. The snake recoiled violently, loosening its grip just enough for Thor to gasp a ragged lungful of air. Logan used the opening to wedge his knee between Thor and the serpent, forcing more space. The python struck again, jaws wide, but Logan rammed his forearm under its mouth and shoved upward, disrupting its aim. Pain shot through his muscles, but he didn't back down. One more opportunity, he brought the knife around and plunged it deep into the same wound, twisting until the serpent's struggles weakened, then stilled. The forest quieted, as if holding its breath. Logan didn't waste a second. He pulled the coils off Thor, checking the dog's pulse, breathing, reaction. Thor coughed, trembled, then pressed his forehead against Logan's arm, a silent thanks that made Logan's throat tighten. "You're okay," Logan whispered. "You're okay. I've got you." As he helped Thor to his feet, something glinted near the rock crevice, a scrap of damp paper pinned beneath a stone. Logan picked it up carefully. The ink had run in places, but the message was still readable. Short, urgent, written by a hand that had been shaking. "If I disappear, don't trust anyone. The truth is deeper in these woods." Cross Logan stared at the note, his pulse still thundering from the fight. Cross had been here recently, and someone had been hunting him just as surely as the python had been hunting Thor. Logan looked deeper into the forest, the mist thickening like a curtain pulled over some dark stage, awaiting its next act. Whatever happened to Cross? This wasn't a simple disappearance. This was a warning, a lead, a trap, and a promise that the shadow he was chasing wasn't done playing. Logan tightened his grip on the note. "Looks like the mission starts here," he murmured. Thor stood at his side, steady despite his shaken breath. The forest didn't feel empty anymore. It felt watched, and Cross's message made one thing painfully clear. Someone had dragged Logan into a hunt that had begun long before he arrived. The forest around Logan felt heavier as he moved deeper into the Appalachian Deepwoods, carrying the damp note from Cross and the memory of the python's attack still burning in his mind. Thor stayed close now, shaken but focused, his steps quieter and more deliberate than before. Logan could sense the shift in the dog's behavior. Thor had always been fearless, but the ambush had triggered something old in him, something from missions where danger came not from gunfire, but from the unseen. Logan recognized that look because he had lived with it too, the lingering edge of a past moment when survival had depended on instincts sharpened to a blade. The deeper they walked, the more Logan felt as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. The mist pressed low, tangled around their legs, and the air grew colder with each step. Thor paused again, this time lower in his head toward a faint trail of crushed leaves leading uphill. Logan followed the line with his eyes and spotted a faint cloth fiber caught on a thorn. It wasn't from Cross's coat, but it looked like something someone had brushed against while moving hurriedly. Logan crouched, studying the ground. There were signs of two sets of movements, one steady and deliberate, the other erratic, scraping against soil as if someone had been limping. Cross had been injured. From the python or something else, Logan didn't know. What he did know was that Cross had passed through here deliberately. As Logan followed the trail, Thor shifted into a careful pace, the three-bark alert still pressing at the back of the dog's throat. Logan could almost feel Thor restraining himself from sounding it again, as if the dog sensed something but couldn't yet pinpoint it. The trail finally led them to a small clearing where an old cabin-like structure stood hidden behind layers of vines. It was too small to be a home, too organized to be a random shack. Logan pushed the door with the side of his boot. It opened easily, revealing a dim interior that smelled of damp wood and cold ash. Thor slipped in first, sniffing the corners. Logan followed, flashlight sweeping across old crates, a cold stove, and a narrow cot where someone had slept recently. The blankets were still slightly warm, telling him Cross had left no more than a few hours earlier. On a small wooden table, he found a leather pouch with several documents stuffed inside. Logan opened the pouch carefully. Inside were multiple letters, their edges wrinkled by moisture, each marked with Cross's handwriting. They were dated across several months, as if Cross had been preparing them gradually, but the last few were fresh, smeared slightly from rain or trembling hands. Logan read the first of them. Cross wrote of a secret operation he and Logan's father had participated in years ago, long before Logan joined the Navy. It had taken place in this very forest, hunting a covert network embedded within military ranks that used Deepwoods as the perfect hiding place for stolen technology and sensitive data. One letter explained how they discovered an underground vault built during a discontinued Cold War program, repurposed by the rogue network for illegal transfers. Another described how Logan's father had insisted on staying behind to buy cross time when their operation was compromised. Logan's chest tightened as he read. He had been told his father died in training, not in a black operation, hidden from official record. Cross had written, "He saved us. He protected the vault because he knew someone in our team had betrayed us." There was no name in that letter, only the words, "someone you know," "someone who knows you." Each line made the forest seem more alive, more watchful, as if the betrayal Cross hinted at still lingered in the branches overhead. Thor growled softly, low and uncertain. It wasn't the normal warning growl. It was something he used on missions where danger wasn't physical but emotional. When Logan's pulse spiked, when memories triggered what he tried so hard to control. Logan rested a hand on Thor's back. Grounding himself, he opened another letter. Cross wrote about hearing strange movements near his cabin at night, shadowy figures watching him, the sensation of being followed. He indicated he had been trying to reach the vault but suspected someone was blocking him. The last page trembled in Logan's hand. Cross had written, "If you are reading this, Logan, I fear the man who betrayed us is hunting me now. He killed your father. He will come for me next." Logan exhaled slowly, feeling every muscle in his back tense. Cross had known something fatal would happen, and Logan wasn't just following orders anymore. Thor barked once, sharp, a single warning, not yet the full 3-bark signal. Logan turned toward the doorway. Something was outside, footsteps, slow, measured, moving with intention. Logan reached for his weapon, silently signaling Thor to lower his posture. The steps stopped right outside the cabin. A figure stood behind the thin wooden wall, breathing just beyond the surface. Logan moved closer, senses razor sharp. The forest was silent except for the rhythm of that breath. Thor's growl deepened, vibrating through the floor. Logan was about to step forward when something scraped the outside wall, a single finger dragging across the wood, slow and taunting. Logan held his breath. Then the sound vanished. No footsteps, no movement, nothing, as if the figure had dissolved into the trees. Logan exchanged a look with Thor. Whoever was outside wasn't lost. They knew exactly where Logan would go, and they weren't afraid of being noticed. Logan folded Cross's letters, tucking them into his jacket. He needed to keep moving. Someone was watching, someone who had walked these forests long before Logan arrived. He stepped out of the cabin, Thor close to his side, and looked into the dense rows of trees stretching ahead. The air felt colder now, the fog thicker, as if the woods knew what he had just learned. Logan tightened his grip on the note Cross had left earlier. The truth wasn't hiding anymore. It was circling him, and somewhere among the shadows, the man who betrayed his father was waiting for him to take one more step forward. The morning light slipped weakly through the canopy, painting the deep woods in muted silver as Logan followed Thor deeper into the forest. The air felt tighter, colder, as if the woods themselves remembered every secret Cross had written about. Thor moved with unusual intensity, driven not by scent alone but by something instinctive, the same instinct that had saved Logan's life on missions where silence was deadlier than bullets. The dog suddenly stopped at the base of a jagged rock wall where thick moss covered a narrow seam between stone slabs. Logan swept his flashlight over the surface and noticed faint scratch marks, deliberate ones, along the edges. Thor pressed his nose against a patch of lichen, then pawed at the ground, letting out a sharp exhale that seemed almost impatient. Logan crouched and brushed away the dirt until cold metal glinted beneath. A tiny keyhole. He pulled the small key Cross had left behind and felt his pulse steady into a controlled rhythm. The key slid in perfectly. With a grinding rumble, the stones retracted inward, releasing a breath of stale, trapped air. The hidden entrance revealed a narrow stone tunnel sloping downward. Thor entered first, his posture rigid and alert, as if prepared for whatever waited in the dark. Logan followed, each step echoing softly. The tunnel widened into a small bunker, carved straight into the mountain, its walls lined with old metal shelves and wooden crates marked with military symbols that hadn't been used in decades. A single lantern hung crookedly, long dead. Logan's beam cut across objects resting on a central table, a set of military insignias, rusted with age, a folded map with several zones blacked out, and a faded photograph tucked under a cracked glass pane. Logan lifted it carefully. Cross stood beside his father, both younger, confident in ways military men rarely stayed for long. Between them stood Sheriff Nolan Grant. Logan studied Grant's expression, a man who once believed in something before shadows twisted his life. Thor's growl was sudden, deep, vibrating through the bunker. Logan turned. Sheriff Grant stood at the entrance, breath steady but eyes tensed. He had always been known as a disciplined figure in the county, a man shaped by years of enforcing rural law, someone who carried a quiet weight he never discussed. Today, that weight showed clearly in the lines around his eyes. "You shouldn't be here, Logan," Grant said. His voice carried the strain of someone torn between warning and pleading. Logan held the photograph up. "You knew my father?" Grant's jaw tightened. "I knew him more than you think, which is why you need to stop digging." Thor bared his teeth, something he almost never did unless threat was undeniable. Grant flinched, not from the dog, but from guilt. Logan stepped closer. "Cross is missing. You think I'm going to walk away?" Grant looked at the floor for a long moment, then exhaled shakily. "There are things buried in these woods no one should unearth." Logan felt anger rise but forced calm into his voice. "Then why did Cross leave me a key to this bunker?" Grant didn't answer. Instead, he turned his back, muttering, "You're not ready for the truth." He walked away before Logan could speak further, footsteps disappearing into the trees with an urgency that felt wrong, almost frightened. Thor, however, refused to relax. The dog stood motionless, staring at a second exit, partially covered by debris. Logan followed his gaze and pushed aside rotted crates. Behind them was a rusted hatch leading into a smaller chamber. Thor squeezed through the gap first, then gave a short, compelled bark, one sharp note he used only when urging Logan to witness something significant. Logan stepped inside. The space resembled a makeshift medical room, abandoned long ago. Metal cabinets stood crooked against the walls, and a splintered table lay tipped over. Dust coated everything except one object on the floor, a leather-bound notebook untouched by decay. Logan picked it up, recognizing the handwriting instantly. Sheriff Grant's. Thor paced in tight circles, growling softly with the restless tension of someone who sensed truth pushing its way to the surface. Logan opened the notebook. The entries were chaotic, written across years of guilt. Grant confessed to falsifying mission reports during the covert operation he, Cross, and Logan's father once belonged to. He wrote about the explosion that killed Logan's father, how Logan's father had dragged him to safety before being caught in the blast. Grant admitted his cowardice in hiding the truth, but the final entries cut deeper. Grant wrote about a man named Mason Riker, a SEAL once known for reckless brilliance, expelled for brutality, later recruited by an off-grid weapons network, using Deepwoods as their covert transport artery. Riker had been the hidden force manipulating everything, the operation's failure, the deaths, the threats that chased Cross even now. Grant wrote, "Riker is back. He wants to erase anyone who still knows, starting with Cross, ending with the boy." Logan closed the notebook slowly. The air felt colder. Thor whimpered, not fear, but a sound of recognition. He remembered the name Riker. They had crossed paths once, briefly, during an exercise where Riker's reputation for cruelty left even battle-hardened handlers uneasy. Logan pressed a hand against Thor's back. "So it's him." A sudden thump echoed from above. Not footsteps, something heavier, deliberate, landing just outside the bunker. Thor barked once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession, the seal K-Nassin signal reserved for extreme threat. Logan grabbed the notebook and moved toward the tunnel with his weapon drawn. Something scraped across the bunker roof, slow and precise, like someone tracing their presence with intention. Then silence. Logan felt the forest holding its breath again. Riker was out, there, watching, waiting. And now he knew Logan was here. The wind shifted across the deep woods with a low, dragging howl, pushing cold air through the ravines as Logan moved quickly along the narrow ridge. Thor trotted ahead, nose pressed low, tension pulsing through every movement. Logan could feel the urgency radiating from the dog. Thor wasn't just tracking, he was reacting to something older, instinctual, a scent tied to blood, fear, and pursuit. Logan tightened his grip on a tree root as he descended a steep slope, boots scraping against loose soil. Thor stopped abruptly near a fissure between 2 jagged boulders. His ears pricked, body rigid, and he released a strained whine that told Logan everything. Someone was inside that crevice. Logan knelt, pushing aside branches and rock fragments until the narrow entrance revealed itself. A warm breath of stale air drifted out, mixed with the metallic scent Thor had detected. Logan slid into the darkness, flashlight cutting through layers of shadows. At the back of the cramped stone pocket, a faint shape shifted. In the beam of light, Logan saw a man collapsed against the wall, shoulders trembling, breath shallow. David Cross. His eyes opened weakly, as if the fight to stay conscious had been a battle longer than the days he had survived out here. Logan dropped to one knee beside him. Cross's voice came out rough, cracked by thirst and exhaustion. "Took you long enough." Even now he tried to force a grin, the kind men carry when they've survived things they shouldn't have. Logan steadied him, noticing dried blood along his ribs and an improvised bandage wrapped around his thigh. "Who did this?" Logan asked quietly. Cross swallowed hard. "Riker. He's hunting the vault. He thinks destroying it will wipe the last record of his sins." Thor lay beside them, pressing his weight gently against Cross's leg, as if grounding him. Logan saw a flicker in Cross's eyes. Relief. He had always trusted Thor more than most humans. Logan helped Cross sip from his water flask. The older man's breathing eased slightly. "He came the first night," Cross whispered. "Said the Navy wouldn't reach me in time. Said your father died because he tried to stop him." Logan froze. Cross looked up at him, expression tight. "Riker knows who you are, Logan. He's known since the day you enlisted. He's been waiting." Logan felt something cold settle in his chest, something that wasn't fear, but clarity sharpened to a knife's edge. "He's after you," Logan said. "Maybe after me now, too." Cross nodded weakly. "He needs the vault gone. If the Navy finds it, if they decode what your father died protecting, his whole network collapses. Weapons, intel, money, years of business buried." Thor suddenly lifted his head, ears turning sharply toward the ridge outside. The dog's body tightened, breath held in his throat. Not a growl yet, just the silent, suffocating tension right before danger forms into shape. Logan lowered Cross carefully. "Can you move?" Cross shook his head. "Not fast, but I can walk if you guide me." Logan helped him stand, bracing most of his weight. Cross grimaced, but didn't complain. His strength came from something deeper than muscle, something that had carried him through operations no one would ever hear about. As they emerged from the crevice, Twilight sealed the forest in a cold blue glow. Thor stood at the edge of the path, staring into the gorge below. Logan followed his gaze. That was when he saw it. Just the faintest shift of black against deeper black. A movement that didn't belong to any animal. A silhouette climbed effortlessly up the opposite cliff face, using roots and cracks with near-silent precision. Logan felt his breath catch. Riker had always been the kind of operative people whispered about, a SEAL who excelled beyond the line where discipline ends and danger begins. Years of exile had stripped him of rules, turning his skills into something predatory, something inhuman. "He's close," Cross murmured, voice trembling with urgency. Thor released a low, rumbling growl, deeper than anything he'd made since the python attack. A sound born from memory, training, and instinct clashing together. Logan steadied himself, tightening his hold on Cross. "We need to move now." Thor padded ahead, checking the path but staying close, protective in a way that showed he understood exactly what was hunting them. Cross leaned heavily on Logan, each step weighted with pain. "He won't let us walk out of this forest," Cross whispered. Logan kept his focus forward. "Then we don't walk, we fight." Thunder rolled somewhere in the distance, a storm gathering above the canopy as if the Deepwoods themselves were warning them. Thor suddenly barked once, a sharp, cutting signal. Not the three-bark alarm, but a call to urgency. Riker was coming fast. Logan steadied Cross at the edge of the trail, looking into the darkening forest. The air had changed. The silence had changed. Somewhere out there on the same soil where Logan's father died, the traitor who caused everything was returning to finish what he started. The night around them felt alive with footsteps they couldn't yet hear. Thor bristled, muscles tightening like coiled rope. Logan's heartbeat settled into the cold, steady rhythm he had trained for his entire life. The hunt had begun. Snow drifted through the upper canopy of Deepwoods as Logan moved with Thor across the old ridge, guided by the clues Cross had entrusted to him and the confessions Grant could no longer hide. The forest felt different now, as if each shadow carried the weight of decades of buried truth. Logan's breath formed steady plumes in the cold air while Thor paced ahead, head low, step silent, and driven by instinct sharpened by years beside Logan. The deeper they went, the more Logan felt they were walking in the footprints of his father. His father had once stood here on these same trails in the same cold, protecting something he believed would save others. Logan felt the weight of that legacy on every step. At the base of a moss-coated cliff, Thor stopped abruptly and raised his head. Logan followed the dog's line of sight. A narrow crack in the stone, near invisible unless someone had been searching, split the cliff at an angle. The edges were blackened, lightly scorched, as if someone had tried to force their way inside not long ago. Thor let out a quiet growl. Logan's pulse tightened. Riker was close. Logan approached the crack, noticing faint footprints in the soil, deep, deliberate, familiar in the way only a man trained like Logan could make them. He pressed his fingers against the cold stone, feeling a vibration almost too subtle to notice, a humming that indicated machinery or old systems buried within. The vault was real, the same vault his father had died protecting. Logan slipped inside the crack, Thor following in a fluid, silent motion. The narrow passage opened into a cavern-like chamber, its walls lined with rusted panels, exposed wires, and an old steel door embedded into the rock. A firelight flickered ahead, throwing tall, distorted shadows against the wall. Logan knew that kind of light. It wasn't warmth. It was destruction. Someone was burning something. Thor tensed, muscles coiling as he prepared to attack. Logan raised a hand, signaling him to wait. But the moment they stepped fully into the chamber, a voice pushed into the silence like a blade. "You're too late, Hayes." Riker stood beside the metal vault door, a torch in one hand and a bundle of classified files in the other. The torch crackled, illuminating his face, a man carved by violence and ambition, eyes empty of remorse. He looked the way veterans sometimes described nightmares, something shaped like a soldier, but hollowed from within. "All that history," Riker said, tapping the files. "All that evidence your father died for, and you're about to watch it burn." Logan drew a slow breath, focusing his entire body into calm readiness. "You ran from the Navy because you were terrified they'd find this place." Riker laughed under his breath. "I didn't run. I adapted." His expression sharpened. "Your father didn't die a hero. He died because he trusted me." Thor snarled then, loud enough to echo. Logan knew that sound. Thor had only ever made it toward two kinds of men, those who carried death inside them and those who had caused it. Riker flicked the torch toward the vault door. One push of flame, and it all disappears. Then Cross, your father, the entire operation, meaningless. Logan moved. The fight erupted like a storm breaking over stone. Riker threw the torch aside and lunged with the speed of a man who had been trained to hunt in silence and kill without hesitation. Logan blocked the first strike, feeling the force rattle through his arm. Riker's second blow came faster, a knife aimed at Logan's ribs. Logan twisted, using the tunnel wall to redirect the blade. They collided hard, fists and boots striking stone, each movement precise and brutal. Riker had not lost his edge. He fought with the aggression of someone who believed he deserved the world and would take it piece by piece. Logan fought with the clarity of someone who knew what was at stake. Not just his life, but his father's truth, Cross's survival, and every person who had suffered because of the network Riker fed. Riker shoved Logan back, raising his knife for a killing strike. But Thor launched forward in a blur of muscle and instinct. The impact sent Riker stumbling. Thor pinned his arm, jaws locked onto Riker's sleeve. Riker roared, slamming his elbow into the dog. But Thor held firm, teeth clamped with the unyielding resolve of a partner who had endured betrayal and refused to allow it again. Logan surged upward, striking Riker across the jaw, then driving his knee into Riker's abdomen. Riker fell, knife skittering across the ground. Logan pinned him with his forearm. "This ends now," Logan said quietly. Riker spat blood. "You think you're doing something noble? You're just finishing someone else's mistake." Logan didn't answer. Instead, he secured Riker's hands with the tactical cord he kept for detainees. It felt almost symbolic, tying down the man who had carried chaos through so many lives. With Riker subdued, Logan turned to the vault door. The inside was intact. The data drives, sealed cases, and records his father had died protecting remained untouched. Logan retrieved everything, packing the cases with the precision of a man honoring his father's final mission. Hours later, under the rising light of morning, Navy personnel arrived to extract Riker and secure the vault's contents. Sheriff Grant approached, his face lined not with fear, but with acceptance. He confessed the truth of the past to the entire town. Surprisingly, they did not condemn him. They saw a man who had lived under fear and guilt finally choosing honesty. Forgiveness came slowly but clearly. That night, Logan returned to Deepwoods Tavern, once abandoned, now glowing with warm light. He lifted the lantern, setting the wick aflame until a soft golden glow spread across the room. Thor curled beside the hearth, body strong, eyes alert even in rest. He looked at Logan with something deeper than loyalty, a sense of fulfillment, as if the dog had finally repaid the promise he made to the seal who had trained him before Logan. Logan stood before the fire, the weight of the past lifting slightly from his shoulders. His father had fought for the truth. Now Logan carried that flame forward. In the quiet hum of the tavern, surrounded by the forest that had once hidden so many secrets, Logan whispered to himself, "I'll keep it alive." In the quiet glow of Deepwoods Tavern, where truth was finally brought into the light, we are reminded of something deeper than the battles we fight or the wounds we carry. Miracles don't always come with thunder or angels tearing open the sky. Sometimes they come softly, through the courage to face the past, the strength to forgive, or the faith to keep going even when the path is dark. Logan thought he had come to the forest to uncover a secret, but God had brought him there to heal a broken story, his father's, Cross's, Grant's, and his own. And maybe that is the greatest miracle of all, that God can take what is shattered, what is buried, and what feels lost, and turn it into something that lights the way forward. In our own lives, we all walk through shadows, fear, loss, regret, unanswered questions. Yet God's hand is never far. Sometimes it appears in a timely word from a friend, a moment of unexpected courage, or a quiet peace that settles in our hearts when we need it most. If this story touched your heart or reminded you of someone you love, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from. Leave a prayer for someone who needs strength today. And if you'd like more stories of hope, redemption, and quiet miracles, please subscribe to the channel. May God bless you, keep you safe, and light your path, just as He did for Logan in the heart of Deepwoods.